Imagine being in a city where suddenly everything descends into chaos. Leaders flee, fear takes over the streets, and no one knows what will happen the next day. That was Rome when Julius Caesar decided to defy all the laws and march with his army straight to the capital. Now picture yourself there, watching a man so powerful that he doesn't just navigate through the chaos, he controls it. It's terrifying to think that, in the blink of an eye, someone can seize all the power and rewrite the rules. But do you know what's even more frightening? That same kind of ambition and manipulation didn't stay in the past. Caesar's story is a warning for all of us about what happens when power falls into the hands of someone who isn't afraid to risk everything. And you? Can you recognize the signs of when something like this might be about to happen again? Either in your life or in the world around you? In this video, I'll show you how Julius Caesar became a dictator, the steps he took, the moves that scared even Rome's greatest generals, and, most importantly, how to understand and learn from this history so you're never caught off guard by something similar. Don't go anywhere, because what you're about to discover might completely change how you view power. Now let me ask you, are you enjoying this story full of twists and power plays? If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. That way you won't miss a single detail of the epic stories we've got coming up, and you'll help me keep bringing amazing content like this. Go ahead, I'll wait. Done? Great. Let's continue, because now comes the most impressive part of Caesar's journey. Imagine a man named Julius Caesar. One day he stood before a small river called the Rubicon alongside his soldiers. This river was special because crossing it without permission was like breaking a very serious rule of his homeland, Rome. But do you know what he did? He looked at the river, thought for a moment, and said, "Let's go forward." And then he crossed it with his 13th legion, starting a great adventure to take control of Rome. It was as if he were telling the world, "I'm ready to change the rules of the game." When Caesar began marching toward Rome, something incredible happened. He was so fast and strategic that his great rival, Pompey, was thrown into despair. Pompey realized he didn't have enough soldiers nearby to face Caesar and decided to flee to a city called Brundisium in southern Italy. Imagine this. While Caesar advanced like lightning, Pompey rushed to a port to try to escape, knowing it was the only place he could protect himself and prepare for a counterattack. It was like a game of hide and seek, but with entire armies. Pompey reached Brundisium and did what any strategist would do. He used the ships he had to flee to Greece. He knew that there he could gather allies and resources to prepare better. But do you know what happened? Many in Rome began whispering, "Why didn't he stay and fight Caesar here? Maybe he could have won." But Pompey wasn't foolish. He knew Caesar was fast and relentless, so he chose to wait for the right moment, like a chess player carefully planning each move. Meanwhile, Caesar was getting closer and closer to Rome. When Caesar finally arrived in Rome, the city was a chaos. Imagine an entire city filled with fear, with leaders and senators loyal to Pompey fleeing as fast as they could. There was no one left to face Caesar. He entered the city as a conqueror, but instead of battle, he found a city almost empty and eerily silent. Then Caesar did something brilliant. He went straight to the Temple of Saturn, where Rome's treasury was kept, and used that money to pay his soldiers, ensuring their loyalty. He was playing the game of power like a true master. After taking Rome, the Senate decided to grant Caesar a very special title, Dictator. This meant he had almost absolute power, but only for a limited time, to handle the most serious crises. And do you know what he did? He shocked everyone. Instead of holding on to this power for months, he relinquished the title after just 11 days. It was as if he was saying, "I don't need this to prove who's in charge." With that move, Caesar left both his friends and enemies baffled, but he demonstrated that he knew exactly how to keep people on his side without appearing greedy. After stepping down as dictator, Caesar was elected consul, a highly prestigious position in the Roman Republic. This gave him the authority to govern, create laws, and lead the army. But here's the genius part. He did all of this while appearing to respect the rules of the Republic, even though he controlled almost everything. It was as if he were saying, "Look, I'm still playing by the traditions." This brilliant move earned him more support, even from those who were suspicious of him, while keeping the real power firmly in his hands. Caesar was a true strategist. While Caesar was consolidating his power in Rome, Pompey was in Greece, assembling a massive army. He had important allies, a wealth of resources, and control of the seas. It was as if he were building an invisible fortress, ready to face Caesar. But Caesar didn't sit around waiting. He knew that before facing Pompey in Greece, he had to deal with another threat: Pompey's forces in Spain. So he embarked on another journey, crossing mountains and difficult terrain with his army, showing once again that he wasn't afraid of challenges. It was like he was clearing the board before the big showdown. Caesar marched swiftly to Spain, where he faced two of Pompey's most loyal generals, Lucius Afranius and Marcus Petreius. These men were clever and used the mountainous terrain to their advantage, making Caesar's life very difficult. But do you know what Caesar did? He used his speed and strategy to cut off their reinforcements, forcing the enemy troops to confront him before they were ready. Everything led to the famous Battle of Ilerda, where Caesar once again showcased his military genius. It was as if he had checkmated them before the game even began. Caesar's victory in the Battle of Ilerda was decisive. It neutralized Pompey's forces in Spain, leaving the territory free of threats. With this, Caesar ensured there would be no distractions or attacks from behind as he prepared for his next step, facing Pompey directly in Greece. However, Caesar knew this would not be an easy fight. Pompey had built a strong army, powerful allies, and control of the seas. Even so, Caesar, with his courage and determination, was ready for the challenge, as if to say, now is the time for the final showdown. The stage was set for one of the greatest clashes in Roman history. As Caesar prepared to follow Pompey to Greece, he knew time was crucial. Pompey, for his part, wasn't sitting idle. He used his naval control to move his troops, supplies, and allies to the east, escaping Caesar's siege at Brundisium. Imagine the scene: Pompey and his fleet sailing away at the last moment, while Caesar stood watching the empty city. It was like a game of cat and mouse, but Pompey knew exactly where to go. He chose Greece, a region rich in resources and allies, perfect for rebuilding his army and planning his comeback. Caesar, on the other hand, had to act quickly, as Pompey was gaining strength by the day. Once in Greece, Pompey began assembling one of the largest armies of his time. He called upon troops from the eastern provinces, recruited mercenaries, and even received aid from allied kings, such as those from Galatia. His army quickly grew to about 40,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry. Moreover, he still controlled the seas, ensuring his supply lines remained intact. It was as if Pompey was assembling a massive military puzzle, piece by piece, while Caesar had to strategize on how to overcome all these advantages. The confrontation drew closer, and both leaders knew the future of Rome would be decided in this epic battle. Before directly confronting Pompey in Greece, Caesar made a strategic move. He knew he needed to ensure no Pompeian forces could attack him from behind, so he set out to neutralize Pompey's loyal forces in Spain. This region was a crucial base, commanded by two experienced generals, Afranius and Petreius. Caesar led his troops through the Pyrenees, facing harsh terrain and resource shortages. But Caesar was a master of swift action. He blocked the enemy forces before they could reorganize or receive reinforcements. It was during this campaign that Caesar once again demonstrated his unmatched ability to improvise and lead under extreme conditions. Caesar's campaign in Spain culminated in the famous Battle of Ilerda. Picture two armies clashing in mountainous terrain, where every move had to be carefully calculated. Afranius and Petreius used the mountains as natural defenses, attempting to thwart Caesar. But Caesar, with his sharp mind, managed to isolate the enemy forces, cutting off their supplies and surrounding their troops. It was like a game of patience, where Caesar slowly tightened the noose. In the end, Pompey's generals realized they had no way out. They surrendered, and Caesar, instead of completely destroying their troops, showed clemency. He understood that earning the loyalty of enemy soldiers was just as important as winning on the battlefield. With Spain secure, Caesar was ready to face Pompey, now without distractions. The final confrontation was drawing closer. With victory in Spain, Caesar turned his full attention to Pompey in Greece. He knew this would be the decisive battle, but there was a problem. Pompey controlled the seas, making it difficult for Caesar to transport his army there. Still, with his characteristic boldness, Caesar found a way. Using improvised vessels and seizing moments of Pompey's carelessness, he managed to cross with his troops. It was as if he had pulled off an unexpected trick on a chessboard. Arriving in Greece, Caesar faced immense challenges. Pompey was well prepared, with a large army and abundant resources, while Caesar had fewer troops and struggled with supply shortages. Yet Caesar didn't give up. He knew he needed to act quickly, as he always did, to disrupt Pompey's plans and turn the tide. The fate of Rome was about to be decided, and Caesar was determined to win at all costs. The final confrontation between Caesar and Pompey took place at the Battle of Pharsalus. Imagine a field teeming with soldiers on both sides, the air thick with tension, as if the very destiny of Rome hung by a thread. Pompey had the advantage in numbers, with a much larger army, but Caesar had something Pompey did not: the unshakable loyalty of his troops in a brilliant strategy. When the battle began, Pompey attempted to use his cavalry to crush Caesar's forces. But Caesar, always one step ahead, had anticipated this. He organized a surprise defensive line with veteran soldiers who not only resisted the attack, but turned it back. It was as if Pompey had fallen into his own trap. In the end, Pompey's troops collapsed, and he was decisively defeated. Pompey fled the battlefield as Caesar claimed his greatest victory. The Roman Republic would never be the same, and the path for Caesar to become Rome's supreme leader was clearer than ever. After his defeat at Pharsalus, Pompey fled to Egypt, seeking refuge with the young pharaoh Ptolemy XIII. He hoped to find support and protection to reorganize his forces, but tragically what he found was betrayal. To please Caesar, Ptolemy's advisors decided to execute Pompey as soon as he arrived in Egypt. Imagine the scene. Pompey, a towering figure in Roman history, being killed in such a cold and unexpected manner. When Caesar arrived in Egypt and was presented with Pompey's head as a gift, he was horrified. Despite being enemies, Caesar respected Pompey and considered this act an affront to Roman traditions. But Caesar wasted no time. In Egypt, he became embroiled in another political issue: the struggle for the throne between Ptolemy XIII and his sister Cleopatra. This led to the famous alliance and romance with Cleopatra, which would further alter the course of history. Caesar was now not only conquering territories, but also engaging in international intrigue, consolidating his power as the world around him changed forever. With Pompey dead and his alliance with Cleopatra solidified, Caesar secured his influence in Egypt. He helped Cleopatra ascend to the throne, consolidating her power and forging a political and personal bond that strengthened his position in the East. But Caesar didn't linger there. He knew there were still pockets of resistance from Pompey's allies scattered throughout the Roman world. As always, he acted swiftly. Caesar launched lightning campaigns to eliminate any threats to his rule. One such battle was at Zela, where he quickly defeated King Pharnaces II, a supporter of Pompey. It was from this victory that Caesar famously declared, "Veni, vidi, vici." I came, I saw, I conquered. This phrase encapsulated how did Caesar not only conquer territories, but do so in such a swift and decisive manner that it seemed almost effortless. Each victory further solidified Caesar's power, bringing him closer to the moment he would become Rome's supreme ruler, with no one left to challenge him. It was the dawn of a new era in Roman history. After his victory at Zela, Caesar turned his attention to the last pockets of resistance from Pompey's allies. He marched to North Africa, where senators and generals loyal to Pompey, such as Cato the Younger, were still rallying troops. However, Caesar, with his unmatched military prowess, quickly defeated these forces at the Battle of Thapsus. It was yet another decisive victory that nearly obliterated the opposition. But Caesar's transformation of Rome wasn't confined to the battlefield. He began implementing a series of political and social reforms. He reorganized the government, expanded citizenship rights to various provinces, and initiated massive public works to improve life in Rome. It was as if he was laying a new foundation for an empire he knew could no longer be governed by the old traditions of the Republic. As Caesar's power and influence grew, he became an increasingly polarizing figure. Many saw him as a savior who brought order to chaos, while others feared him, believing he was becoming a tyrant. Even so, Caesar pressed forward, as if he knew he was shaping the destiny not just of Rome, but of the entire world. With all resistance crushed, Caesar returned to Rome as the most powerful man in the world. He was met with triumphant parades and grand celebrations. Imagine the streets of Rome filled with crowds shouting his name, flowers being thrown, and statues being erected in his honor. Caesar was the hero of the city, but he had bigger plans than mere admiration. He declared himself dictator for life, a title that granted him absolute control over Rome. But unlike other leaders, he used this power to continue his reforms. He reorganized the calendar, creating the Julian calendar that we still use today. He redistributed land, forgave debts, and planned expeditions to further expand Roman territory. However, this absolute power began to unsettle Rome's elite. Some senators started conspiring against him, fearing he intended to become a king, a title that Romans despised. Caesar, however, seemed unconcerned. He was at the peak of his career, but unknowingly walking straight toward a tragic fate that would change Rome forever. As Caesar expanded his power and implemented his reforms, conspiracies against him intensified. Many senators, including some whom Caesar had pardoned, secretly plotted his downfall. They feared he was destroying the traditions of the Roman Republic and becoming a king, something unacceptable to a people who valued republican liberty above all. Caesar seemed too confident to notice the danger. He continued attending public events, ignoring the warning signs. Then came the fateful day, March 15th, 44 BCE, known as the Ides of March. Caesar was summoned to the Senate for a meeting, unaware that it was a deadly trap. As he entered the chamber, he was surrounded by a group of senators armed with daggers. Among them was Brutus, someone Caesar considered a friend. Imagine the scene: Caesar, powerful and confident, being attacked by those he trusted. He tried to resist, but the blows came from every side. According to legend, his final words were directed at Brutus. "Et tu, Brute?" Caesar fell there on the Senate floor, a victim of betrayal that shook Rome. His death marked the end of an era and the beginning of another, filled with chaos and wars. He had transformed Rome forever, but his legacy would be contested by those who followed. It was the end of Caesar, but the beginning of a new chapter in Rome's history. If you've made it this far, it's because this story captivated you, right? So take a moment to subscribe to the channel and give it a like. This way, you'll stay updated with more fascinating stories like this one and help me continue bringing incredible content to you. Don't forget to comment on what you thought and which part impressed you the most. Now it's up to you, and I'll see you in the next video.